Díomh agus fáilte romh cóide agus lucht tacaíochta uile I Canada chuig an gomóra pan-Canada seo stailceanna ocrais 1981. On behalf of Sinn Fein, I want to welcome all our friends and supporters in Canada to this pan-Canadian commemoration of the 1981 hunger strikes. Bonjour et bienvenue au nom du Sinn Fein à tous nos amis francophones pour cette commémoration pan-canadienne des grèves de la faim irlandaise de 1981. I'd also like to send greeting to all our friends in the First Nations. The hunger strikes were a dark time in Ireland as 10 young men died to assert their rights as political prisoners. During this struggle, the British state sought to isolate the prisoners and break the spirit of the Irish people. The British state failed miserably on both counts. All over the world, the names of Bobby Sands and his comrades became synonymous with the struggle for freedom and for human dignity. Partout dans le monde, le nom de Bobby Sands et de ses camarades sont devenus synonymes de la lutte pour la liberté et la dignité humaine. During this difficult period, our friends in Canada were with us. There were large demonstrations in Toronto and Vancouver in support of the 5 demands. Nos amis au Québec ont organisé des manifestations de mai à octobre devant le consulat britannique à Montréal. Your support made a difference and helped isolate the British government in the court of world opinion. Votre soutien a fait la différence et a contribué à isoler le gouvernement britannique dans le cours de l'opinion mondiale. While we are gathered here to remember the sacrifice of the hunger strikers, we should also look to the future. In the context of Brexit and the pandemic, a united Ireland makes more sense than it ever has. And Sinn Fein is committed to realising the dream the hunger strikers died for. A new, united Ireland. Le Sinn Fein s'est engagé à réaliser la rêve pour laquelle les grévistes de la faim sont morts. Une Irlande nouvelle et unie. Tout comme vous étiez avec nous en 1981, nous comptons sur votre soutien dans le jour à venir. Souvenons-nous du passé et du sacrifice des grévistes de la faim alors que nous nous tournons vers un avenir radieux. Just as you stood with us in 1981, we count on your support in the coming days. Let's remember the past and the sacrifice of the hunger strikers as we look to a brighter future. Thank you. Merci. Gurv Mahagwiv.
My name is Sean Hart and I hail from the village of Lochmacrory in County Tyrone. I've been a resident of Canada since October 1974. On behalf of Friends of Sinn Fein Canada, I'm pleased to join with my fellow Republicans and activists across Canada, and indeed from other various places around the world, to commemorate the 10 brave men who gave their lives for the cause of Irish freedom in the Maze prison in 1981. Over the centuries, the hunger strike in Ireland evolved from a method for individuals to highlight claims against each other to an effective means of political and social change. In medieval Ireland, where hunger strikes were encoded in civic law, it was common practice for people to fast on the doorstep of someone they felt had committed them an injustice. This situation would hopefully shame or scare an individual into concessions. If the hunger striker was permitted to die, the person on whose doorstep the faster had died would be held responsible for the death and liable to compensate the deceased family. Though hunger striking is not an exclusively Irish weapon against injustice, it has been used since 1916 by Irish Republicans in their struggle for freedom and social justice in Ireland. One of the early hunger strikers was carried out by Patrick Daly in North Wales prison in 1916. Other famous hunger strikers included Thomas Ashe in 1917. And then, of course, the famous hunger striker of 1920, the Lord Mayor of Cork, Terence McSweeney, which attracted a worldwide interest. When he died after 73 days without food, 40,000 people turned out to watch his funeral cortege, and even the Pope sent a blessing. In honour of Terence McSweeney, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you Jimmy Carton from Toronto, originally from Dundalk, and Jimmy will give us his rendition of Shall My Soul Pass Through Old Ireland.
In a dreary Brixton prison, where an Irish rebel lay, by his side a priest was standing, ere his soul should pass away. As he faintly murmured, "Father," and he clasped him by the hand, "Tell me this before I die, shall my soul pass through Ireland? Shall my soul pass through old Ireland, and through Cork's old city grand? Shall I see the old cathedral, where St. Patrick took his stand? Shall I see the little chapel, where I pledged my heart and hand? Tell me this before you leave me, shall my soul pass through Ireland? 'Twas for loving dear old Ireland, in this prison cell I lie. 'Twas for loving dear old Ireland, in a foreign land I die. Will you meet my little daughter? Will you make her understand? Tell me, Father, when you leave me, shall my soul pass through Ireland? With his heart pure as a lily, and his body sanctified, in this dreary British prison, our brave Irish rebel died. Prayed the priest his wish be granted, and in blessing raised his hand. O Father, grant his glory, may his soul pass through our land.
The hunger strike became part of the struggle again during the modern era of the late 1970s. Michael Gaughan was one of the earliest IRA volunteers to be imprisoned in England, being sentenced to 7 years at the Old Bailey in London in December of 1971 for his part in the bank raid. Michael died on Monday, June the 3rd, 1974. Frank Stagg died on February the 12th, 1976, after 62 days on hunger strike, his wife and his mother at his bedside. He was only 33 years old. At the time of his death, he weighed a mere 4 stone or 66 pounds. The root of the hunger strike can be traced back to 1976, when the British government took the drastic step in labelling Irish Republican prisoners as common criminals. The British government removed the special category or political status. Prisoners convicted after March 1976 would have to wear a prison uniform, do prison work, and also serve their sentences in the new Maze prison cells, as opposed to the barracks and huts in the adjacent Long Kesh camp. This led to the blanket protest in which Republican prisoners refused to wear the criminal uniform and clothed themselves instead with their prison blanket. Kieran Nugent was the first Republican prisoner to refuse to wear the prison uniform. After repeated ill treatments, including beatings and assaults from prison wardens, the dirty protest began in 1978. Prisoners could not leave their cells. There were eventually 250 to 300 prisoners on the dirty protest. We now travel to Halifax, Nova Scotia, where Brian Doherty of Evans and Doherty performs 90 miles from Dublin.
I'm 90 miles from Dublin town. I'm in a H-block cell. To help you understand my plight, the story now I'll tell. I'm on the blanket protest, my efforts must not fail, for I'm joined by men and women in the Kesh and Armagh jail. It all began one morning I was dragged to Castlereagh, and though it was 3 years ago, it seems like yesterday. For 3 days kicked and beaten, I then was forced to sign confessions that convicted me of deeds that were not mine. Sentenced in a Diplock court, my protest it began. I could not wear their prison gear, I was a blanket man. I'll not accept their status, I'll not be criminalized. That's the issue in the blocks for which we give our lives. Over there in London town, oh how they'd laugh and sneer if they could only make us wear their loathsome prison gear. Prisoners of war is what we are, and that we must remain. The blanket protest cannot end till status we regain. I've been beaten round the romper room because I won't say sir. I've been frog marched down the landing and dragged back by the hair. I've suffered degradation, humility and pain. Still my spirit does not falter, British torture is in vain. I've been held in scalding water while my skin
After years of degradation, beatings, filth, poor food and general abuse, on March the 1st, 1981, the men resorted to the only weapon available to them, the hunger strike. They began the strike on their own initiative, with Bobby Sands being the first to refuse food. Other brave comrades joined Bobby in the weeks and months to follow, all in an effort to secure the 5 demands which amounted to political status. The 5 demands were the right not to wear a prison uniform, the right not to do prison work, the right to associate freely, restoration of the right to earn remission of sentence, and the right to a weekly visit, letter or parcel, and the right to organise their own educational and recreational pursuits. The hunger strikers won the sympathy and support of the people all over the world, but the British would not implement their just demands. 10 young Irishmen died on hunger strike in 1981.
Bobby Sands was born on March 9, 1954. He was the first to refuse food on March 1, 1981, 1 week before his 27th birthday. He was elected on April 9, 1981, in the by-election to fill the seat held by the late independent MP Frank Maguire, who had died just 5 days after Bobby had begun his hunger strike. The young Belfast man won the support of 30,492 voters, 10,000 more than British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher in her London constituency of Finchley, and with a majority twice as large. With full remission of his sentence, Bobby would have been eligible for release in 1984. Instead, Bobby chose to give his life for his comrades. Bobby died after 66 days on hunger strike on May the 5th, 1981. His son Jared's birthday was 3 days later.
Francis Hughes was born in Balahi in South Derry. He was described in many circles as one of the most fearless and tenacious guerrilla fighters of the 20th century. British authorities described him as the most wanted man in the north of Ireland. He was 22 years old when he was captured in full military uniform in March of 1978. In spite of this, he was denied prisoner of war status and sentenced to life imprisonment. Francis was the first to join Bobby Sands on hunger strike on March 15, 1981. He died 59 days later on May 12th.
Raymond McCreesh. Raymond was born in Camla, in an area known as Bandit Country by the British Army, as they were unable to access the roads of South Armagh and needed to bring provisions to their troops using helicopters. Raymond was arrested in 1979 when he was only 19 years old. He had already served 3 years of active service. Raymond went on the blanket protest as he would not wear a prison uniform. And because of this, he forfeited visits from family and friends for 4 years. Raymond met his parents in 1981 to let them know that he was going on the hunger strike. He commenced his hunger strike on March 22nd and died 61 days later on May the 21st, 1981. Yesh J. Arawa and Yiddish.
Patsy O'Hara was born in 1957 in Derry City. Patsy and Ray McCreesh joined the hunger strike together. He was 11 years old when he and his parents took part in the big civil rights march in Derry on the 5th of October 1968. He was also an eyewitness to the Bloody Sunday Massacre. He was held on remand for 19 months in 1975-76, but was later acquitted and released. Patsy was arrested again in January 1980 and sent to Long Kesh for 8 years. With full remission, Patsy would have been eligible for release in 1984. Instead, Patsy would not allow himself to be branded a criminal. Patsy died on the 21st of May 1981 after 61 days on hunger strike, the same day as Ray McCreesh.
Joe McDonald was born in 1950 in the Lower Falls Road in Belfast. He was a well-known and very popular man in the Greater Andersontown area. Joe had a reputation as a quiet and deep-thinking individual with a gentle, happy-go-lucky personality. He had the ability to make friends easily. In 1971, he and his wife were driven from their home by a loyalist mob. He joined the Republican movement soon after the introduction of internment without trial. He himself was interned on the prison ship Maidstone in 1972 and in Longcash from 1973 to 1974. Arrested in jail for commercial bombing operation, Joe was sentenced in September 1977 to 14 years imprisonment. On May 9th, 1981, Joe replaced Bobby Sands on hunger strike. 61 days later, on July 8th, 1981, Joe gave his life for the love of for his comrades. With full remission, Joe would have been eligible for release in 1984.
Martin Herson. Martin Herson was born in September 1956 and raised in Kappa County, Tyrone. Martin was arrested in November 1976. He sustained serious physical abuse at the hands of the RUC and was charged with possession of explosives. He was then convicted based on another interrogation, after which interrogators were charged with assault. He spent 46 days on hunger strike, starting on May 29th. He died on July 13th, 1981. Coming 2 weeks earlier than might have been expected, his death disproved the assessment that the hunger strikers were not in danger until around the 60-day stage. Even the young Tyrone man was dying. The vindictiveness of the prison authorities never abated. Though the family had been sent for due to his serious condition, Martin's brother Francie was refused entry to the prison because he arrived after 10 p.m. He spent the night outside the H-Block's gate as his brother died inside.
Kevin Lynch. Kevin Lynch was born in 1956 in Dungiven, County Derry. He joined the Fianna at 14 years old and eventually joined the Republican movement as a volunteer. He was arrested in December 1976 and charged with conspiracy to obtain arms. In 1977, the Diplock court sentenced him to 10 years in prison. He joined the hunger strike on May the 23rd, 1981, and died on August the 1st, 1981, after 71 days on hunger strike. Kevin optimised all that was good in a young Irishman playing our national games of hurling and football. He excelled at both and captained the Derry under-16 team, which won the All-Ireland hurling title in 1972. In 1981, the Derry County Board and the South Antrim County Board asked for a minute's silence before the All-Ireland hurling semi-final between Galway and Limerick. Croke Park refused. It was fitting that the Dungiven's club name, St. Patrick, was changed to Kevin Lynch's in his honour.
Kieran Doherty was born in West Belfast in Andersonstown in 1955. His two older brothers, Michael and Terence, were interned between 1972 and 1974. Kieran himself joined the Napina Earn in 1971. Kieran was interned in 1973 in Longcash for over 2 years. This time he had political status. He was released from internment without trial in November 1975, and he was sentenced to 18 years in January 1978. At this time he went on the blanket right away. Kieran stood up for the screws while in Longcash in the H-Blocks and remained unbowed and unbroken. Kieran was elected TD for Monaghan and Cavan during this time. He went on hunger strike on May 22nd, 1981 and died on a hunger strike on August 2nd, 1981. He was on a hunger strike for 73 days. Kieran was never a criminal and would never let the Brits criminalise the struggle for Irish freedom.
Thomas McLaughlin was born in Balahi in South Derry in 1957. He was the first cousin of Francis Hughes. He joined the blanket protest as soon as he arrived in Longcash after his trial in September in 1977, along with his brother Benedict. Thomas's mother Alice said, "I know Thomas and Benedict would be determined to stand up for their rights in the blocks. One will stand for the other. If the hunger strike isn't stopped one way or another, they will all go the same way." Thomas's final wish: "I ask forgiveness for everyone. I would rather live than die. But if I would like to let the people know that I bear no animosity, no ill feelings towards anybody, I would like to live among the people as a social worker and promote peace and harmony among Catholics and Protestants, and also with the British. I feel very close to God now, and I'm very happy. I have no worries. I am still hopeful for a settlement. Thomas McColby."
Michael Devine. Michael Devine was born in 1954 in a hut in Springtown Camp on the outskirts of Derry. He too was witness to the Bloody Sunday Massacre. Michael was arrested in September 1976 following an INLA arms raid in County Donegal. He received a 12-year sentence in June 1977. He spent 60 days on hunger strike from the 22nd of June. He died on the 20th of August 1981. On the death of Michael, his brother-in-law Frankie Macaulay said, "One thinks, 10 men, how many more have to die? We have ours now over us. Next week it'll be Big Lawrence's people, waiting for the same thing. Then the Delvins after that, and another boy will go on hunger strike, and another. They will never break them." Mickey was denied a Christian burial by the Catholic Church, but at his grave, a lady piper played the H-Block song and a bugler sounded the last post. With full remission, Michael would have been scheduled for release in 1982. Instead, he was the last hunger striker to die on the 20th of August, 1981.
Pat Chessel here from Vancouver, BC, and this is the Ballad of Joe McDonald. Oh, my name is Joe McDonald. From Belfast town I came, the city I will never see again. For in the town of Belfast I spent many happy days. I love that town in oh so many ways. For it's there I spent my childhood and found for me a wife. I then set out to make for her my life. But all my young ambitions met with bitterness and hate. I soon found myself inside a prison gate. And you dare to call me a terrorist while you look down your gun, when I think of all the deeds that you've done. You plundered many nations, you divided many lands, you have terrorized our people, you've ruled with an iron hand, and you brought this reign of terror to my land. For the many months interment, through the Maidstone and the maze, I thought about my land throughout those days. Why my country was divided, why I was now in jail, imprisoned without crime or without trial. And though I love my country, I'm not a bitter man. I've seen cruelty and injustice at first hand. So then one fateful morning, I shook bold freedom's hand. For right or wrong, I tried to free and you dare to call me a terrorist, while you look down your gun when I think of all the deeds that you have done. You have plundered many nations, divided many lands. You have terrorized their people. You rule with an iron hand, and you brought this reign of terror to my land. Then one cold October morning, trapped in a lion's den, I found myself in prison once again. I was committed to the H blocks for 14 years or more. On the blanket, the conditions, they were poor. Then a hunger strike we did commence to the dignity of man, and it seemed to me that no one gave a damn. For now I am a sad man. I watched my comrades die. If only people cared or wondered why. And you dare to call me a terrorist while you look down your gun when I think of all the deeds that you have done. You have plundered many nations, divided many lands. You have terrorized our people. You've ruled with an iron hand, and you brought this reign of terror to my land. And may God shine on you, Bobby Sands, for the courage you've shown. May your glory and your fame be widely known. And Francis Hughes and Ray McCreesh, who died unselfishly, and Patsy O'Hara, the next in line is me. And those who lie behind me, may your courage be the same. And I pray to God my life was not in vain. Ah, but sad and bitter was the year of 1981. For everything I've lost and nothing's won.
That was Pat Cecil of Vancouver singing the Ballad of Joe McDonald, written by Brian Warfield of the Wolf Tones. We have several family members of the hunger strikers living here in Ontario. We are honoured that they have provided us with some of their personal reminiscences.
The last visit I had, I seen some of the families, seen some of the other prisoners that were on hunger strike, and to be honest, none of them really looked too good, you know. That was Joseph just had about 2 or 3 days, I think, and not possible with that many days. But he was comatose at the time, and the other guys that were following him they had lost a lot of weight, of course. Their faces you could see the bones in their face, in their arms. Their eyes was sunk back in the back of their heads, and their eyes was just a little glint in a ball of black. I mean, it was inhumane to watch them like that, you know. You'd have poured your heart out if you could have done anything to stop it, you know, but it was inevitable at the time, you know. And that's a sad law will stay with me, but that happened, and as I say, we know what went on from there, you know. But sad situation all around, you know. It's nice to know that you know that much and know it firsthand, like there's no nonsense about it, but this I witnessed firsthand. And it's just said you'll never forget, you know. Just sad for the whole families, the whole lot of them. All good guys. That's all I can say. My brother Joe made this in Longcash in 1973 when he was in town, POW, and he made it for me and my wife, and he made it, it was musical, played music, and he got it out to bring over to me in Canada, so it's always with me and the family, so I always appreciate this, so it's just something to hold on to what he had, you know.
Yeah, it's a beautiful art, so it is.
Well, this is something else from Joe. It was a little radio, actually. It was bought in Toronto, and it was brought over, and it has Joe's name on it, Joe McDonald, H5 952, when he was on the hunger strike, and this is what came out of his cell after he deceased, and my father got this, and I was home that year, and my father thought that I should have it and look after it, so I appreciated that.
What do you think now that because of the sacrifices that were made by the hunger strikers, that Sinn Fein now is the largest party in the area of Ireland?
Well, I think that's the reason they are, and I think they will continue to grow because people now know that they have a party that is right up there and they will work for them. And they know how they got there, so they're going to work for them. And that's why I say there's going to be a free Ireland, and it's going to come sooner than later, I think. I don't think it's too far down the road. Then we go back to the hunger strike. They'll always be there, they'll always be remembered. And the people that's going up there now, if people are talking to them about it, they'll keep continuing until they won't be forgotten, because it'll be put into a book and sealed that there's a free Ireland and these are the men that done it and that. So we won't have to be like this now, having meetings and talking about them. We don't have to. We know what happened. We know how it happened. And if people want to know, then they go down and read the book. And see, it's all there, black and white.
The hunger strike, perhaps like no other event in Irish history, brought to light the issues of immorality and injustice that the British government wanted to keep in the dark of the Maze prison. It mobilised supporters from the Irish diaspora like never before, including here in Canada. The Irish took to the streets of Vancouver, Montreal and Toronto. We are pleased to have reminiscences from some of the key activists in Canada from that era.
There were anxious moments as supporters of Bobby Sands gathered outside the British Airways office on Bloor Street. Sands is demanding that jailed IRA men like himself be treated as political prisoners rather than criminals. And today's crowd came to support the 27-year-old Irishman who was gone without food for 56 days. The rally had barely gotten underway when a group of British loyalists arrived waving the Union Jack and opposed the IRA supporters. The two groups hurled insults at each other while police kept them apart. Michael Quigley is the secretary of the Irish Prisoner of War Committee, the group that sponsored today's rally. He says Bobby Sands would not be lying close to death today if it weren't for British intervention in Northern Ireland.
They're political prisoners. They're political prisoners because everything about the system that put them in jail is special, is political, was designed by Lord Diplock and the British government. And Lord Diplock said it was an extrajudicial system designed to efficiently dispose of the political opponents of British military rule.
The thing I remember most vividly about the hunger strikes, was the picket and the demonstrations that started in October 1980 during the first hunger strike and continued for a whole year until September 1981, including all the way through the gap between the first and second hunger strikes, because we knew that it hadn't really been settled and that things were still up in the air and the prisoners were still fighting and that there would be a second hunger strike. The original picket can't have been more than maybe 8 or 9 or 10 people, But when Bobby Sands was elected MP, there was this burst of energy and optimism among people who'd been coming to the pickets at British Airways. It was the only British institution we could actually get at, and then there was all this optimism. But then Bobby died, and that was like the rage, the anger was palpable. You could feel it, and it brought out 1,000 people for a funeral march down Yonge Street that Saturday. And then a few days later, after the Archbishop of Toronto had denied us access to any of the churches, we held a Requiem Mass for Bobby Sands at Neil McNeill High School, and 2,000 people came to that. We had all sorts of activities. It wasn't just the pickets. There were all sorts of activities. We had fundraisers, we had pub nights. I have to acknowledge the role, the big part that Jimmy McVeigh in particular, and Paddy Canavan, Paddy's place on Eglinton, and John Gilligan at the Maple Roof Ballroom, all of whom donated space and time. We had a big fundraiser at the Maple Leaf Ballroom. And there were all sorts of musicians who came out to join us. The spread of support was very wide. It included trade unions, the OFL, the steelworkers, the auto workers, and Pat Rooney, who was a major player in the campaign and a key member of the committee, was a leading figure in the Public Service Union. The worst part of that year was when Joe McDonald was on the hunger strike following Bobby Sands, and it was particularly gruesome to a lot of us simply because we knew his brother Patsy, who lived here in the Toronto area, and Patsy and Mary and their children were part of the campaign from the beginning and played a big role. His sister came shortly before Joe died and led a number of our demonstrations, including a very successful one at the British Consulate downtown. Other people came from Ireland too. 3 ex-prisoners, Raymond Crane, Sheila Dara, who's just published a book, and Fra McCann. Fra was here for a long time. He did a countrywide tour. I went with him to Calgary and Edmonton and Vancouver. He spent a lot of time in Montreal with the late Dennis Lyne and Kevin Callahan and company there. We had support in Newfoundland from a fellow called Andy Rowe, who organised a committee there. It was a big event in the Irish community. It brought a whole new spirit into the Irish community that wouldn't have happened otherwise. That's, I think, the lesson of it is how we were incited, we were invested in them, in the struggle, but we were also inspired by it.
Au Québec, beaucoup ont une forte sympathie pour l'Irlande et cela remonte au 19e siècle quand des milliers d'Irlandais sont arrivés au Québec. Notre alliance au Québec avec l'Irlande s'est manifestée, entre autres, lors de la grève de la faim irlandaise en 1981. Le Parti québécois, qui était alors à l'époque en pouvoir, a voté unanimement pour le soutien des 5 revendications des grévistes de la faim irlandais. C'était le seul parti politique au monde de cette ampleur à faire un tel geste. Kevin Callahan fonde le Comité Québec-Irlande en 1979. Le voici qui nous parle de l'appui au Québec pour la lutte des prisonniers politiques républicains.
I founded the Quebec-Ireland Committee, the Comité Québec-Irlande, in 1979, and I felt that there was a strong base of natural sympathy and support here in Quebec, and that proved to be very true. During the first hunger strike, we had demonstrations and mobilizations in support of the 5 demands of the prisoners. And then when Bobby Sands launched the second hunger strike, we were well placed to continue that support and build on it. We had a huge demonstration in front of the British consulate when Bobby Sands died. This is our late comrade George Berriot, very well known in Irish republicanism, speaking in front of the consulate. They closed the whole building that the British consulate was located in because of our demonstration. We had about 700 people marching in front of the British consulate, and they were just concerned at the anger people felt over the murder of Bobby Sands by the Thatcher government. We had leaders from the Quebec trade union movement, politicians, a very, very strong presence. It was really great. But we continued as well. We didn't just stop after that. During the summer, we had a big march down Saint Denis Street of 600 people in June. We had a soiree of solidarity as well that night. And then we had the presence of an ex-blanket man from McCann, who was really a great help. He helped us a lot with interviews and going to meetings and talking to people and winning support for the 5 demands of the prisoners. We did pickets in front of the British consulate all summer, until October, in fact, till the hunger strike ended. Every Thursday from 4 to 6, we'd be out there. We had 80, 90, 100 people every week protesting in support of the prisoners. We even had a 24-hour hunger strike as well in the Irish community. We slept in a community center, about 40 of us, and I always remember we were doing interviews, and one man heard the interview and came down and joined us, and he had been a political prisoner in Chile and tortured by the coup by Pinochet, and he came down and joined us and supported us in our activities ever after that. Our support here in Quebec was incredible during that whole period. There was a natural sympathy for Ireland, and that's continued to the present day in the struggle of Irish Republicans for justice and unity and peace in Ireland.
Okay, thank you.
Hello folks, my name is Bernard Ward. I'm originally from Belfast, Northern Ireland, from McCullen Road. I was asked, how did you find Vancouver when you come to Vancouver? I found Vancouver, the Irish were very much fragmented, but there was support for the hunger strikers in Vancouver. We had Danny Burns in the ballad band with Pat Jessel in the background there. He was only 8 or 9 years old then, and we had Roisin O'Hay, Jimmy Brady. We run functions to raise funds for the hunger strikers by means of functions in the Blarney Stone, which is a well-known Irish pub in Vancouver. Also in the Wise Club, which is part of the Queen Elizabeth, and other areas where we run functions. But I found that we had to educate the people on what the hunger strikers meant and what they did for us. Now, in all this torture and misery, what they did find was the inner strength to teach each other the Irish language, Irish arts and crafts, poems, music. After all this, they found this ultimate strength. So what I'm asking you is to try and find a little bit of that strength as we move forward with this unity platform, so we can thank the hunger strikers for what they did. Thank you very much. I would like to introduce you to a fellow Belfast man known as Terry Brennan, better known in Vancouver as Turlough Brennan. He will now recite a poem from Bobby Sands called The Rhythm of Time.
There's an inner thing in every man. Do you know this thing, my friend? It has withstood the blows of 1,000,000 years and will do so to the end. It was born when time did not exist, and it grew up out of life. It cut down evil strangling vines like a slashing searing knife. It lit fires when fires were not, and burnt the mind of man, tampering leaden hearts of steel from the time that time began. It wept by the waters of Babylon, and when all men were a loss, it screeched its writhing agony, and it hung bleeding from the cross. It died in Rome by lion and sword, and in a defiant, cruel way, when the deadly word was Spartacus along the Appian Way. It marched with Watt and Tyler's poor, and frightened lord and king, and it was emblazoned in their deadly stare, as e'er a living thing. It smiled in holy innocence before conquistadors of old, so meek and tame and unaware of the deadly power of gold. It burst forth through pitiful Paris streets, and stormed the old Bastille, and marched upon the serpent's head, and crushed it neath its heel. It died in blood on buffalo plains, and starved by moons of rain, in hearts that were buried in wounded knee, but it will rise again. It screamed aloud by Carrie's lakes, as it was knelt upon the ground, and it died in great defiance as they coldly shot it down. It is found in every light of hope. It knows no bounds nor space. It has risen in red and black and white, and it is there in every race. It lies in the hearts of heroes dead. It screams in tyrant's eye. It has reached the peak of mountains and comes searing across the sky. It lights the dark of this prison cell. It thunders forth its might. It is the undauntable thought, my friend. That thought that says, I'm right.
It was a momentous time for the Irish people the world over as we followed the day-to-day struggle of the prisoners inside the blocks. No one was closer to the reality of that struggle than Vic McFarlane, IRA commander in the H blocks in 1981.
Could I just begin by saying that I'm delighted and honoured to be asked to contribute to this commemoration for our 10 hunger strikers who died courageously in 1981. And I would like to say that first and foremost, a big thank you and much appreciation for the valued support that we've had from outside these shores, particularly in North America. And Canada, of course, as well. Our Canadian brothers and sisters helped in no small way to help bring attention and a focus and a tremendous amount of support to the hunger strikers through 1981, probably one of the most difficult years in all of our lives. We are deeply indebted to every one of you for that support, especially in the face of severe opposition that you had over there from loyalist elements in terms of counter protests, etc., etc. But I have to say that I've met quite a number of people from Canada in the intervening years, and some of them have become very good friends, and I realise the importance of the role that you all played during that awful period. We are deeply indebted to you for your support, and of course that support in continuing to push our way forward for freedom and justice and an end to the conflict here in total that will bring about eventually, and in the not too distant future, we all hope, the united Ireland that we all strove for, that the hunger strikers gave their lives for. So we hope to see you in the not too distant future. I know we're living through difficult times, and we are delighted for your continued participation and continuation in struggle for justice, equality and liberty in our country. I'd like to finish now with a little song that I wrote. I actually wrote this on the 10th anniversary of Bobby Sands' death and hunger strike, and I always like to dedicate it to the memory of all our hunger strikers. Thank you. doesn't seem quite so long ago. Last time that I saw you, ain't it funny how the memories grow? It seems they always fold around you, tried to break you in a living hell, but they couldn't find a way, so they killed you in an H-block cell. Hope that all would turn away. Thought your spirit wouldn't rise again, but you dared to prove them wrong. And in death you tore away the chains to let the world hear freedom's song. Yet the heartache and pain linger on. They're still here, though it's so long since you've gone. But we're stronger now. You showed us how freedom's fight can be won. I wish there was an easy road to choose to bring the heartache to an end, but easy roads are always sure to lose. I've seen it time and time again. If you could stand by me like yesterday, I'd find the strength to carry on. So let your spirit shine along the way, and our day will surely come. Yet the heartache and pain linger on. They're still here, though it's so long since you've gone. But we're stronger now. You showed us how freedom's fight can be won if we all stand as one.
For Irish Republicans today, it's undeniable that we are in a much better place because of the sacrifice of all of our hunger strikers. It is a truism to brave and selfless men. We now turn to Alan McConnell, President of Friends of Sinn Fein Canada.
I want to thank Sean Hart and everyone who helped produce our hunger strike commemoration. The hunger strike, of course, was part of a bigger struggle to free Ireland. That struggle continues today. In fact, we are entering into an exciting new phase of the struggle. The possibility of winning a united and free Ireland is within the grasp of our generation. The Good Friday Agreement sets out a pathway to unity through unity referenda, north and south in Ireland. We in Canada have a role to play. We are calling on the British and Irish governments to stage unity referenda within the next 5 years. We must mobilize the Irish Canadian community and our friends like we did in 1981 to secure referenda and then to win the referenda. We encourage you to visit our website www.fosfc.com to read the Canada Day call and petition for unity referenda. Sign it. Get your friends to sign it. The petition can be signed on our website or at change.org. The best way to honor the memory of the hunger strikers is to win Irish freedom. It is the least we can do. Our generation has the chance to finish the job. Now is the time. This is doable. Join with us and Sinn Fein in Ireland in winning justice, peace, and freedom. Thank you.
Friends and comrades, all of you are part of the family of people who stand shoulder to shoulder with these brave men and their families. Men who give their lives for the cause of freedom and justice. To conclude our 2020 Hunger Strike commemoration, we have Hugo Strami from Toronto and originally from West Belfast to perform a song dedicated to his late cousin Joe McDonald. Hugo is performing in front of Neil McNeil High School, where a mass was held for Bobby Sands following his death in May 1981, a mass attended by an estimated 2,000 people. Míle buíochas.
Hello, my name's Hugo Strami, originally from West Belfast, now living in Toronto, Canada. And I've been asked to sing a song for Friends of Sinn Fein Canada. This song goes back to 1916 and the brave men and women who sacrificed their lives for that rebellion. But I want to dedicate it to my cousin, Joseph McDonald, known to the world as Joe McDonald, and the other brave 9 men who sacrificed their life, who were just as important as the brave men and women of 1916. As we gather in the chapel here in old Kilmainham jail, I think about these past few weeks. Oh, will they say we failed? From our school days, they have told us we must yearn for liberty. But all I want in this dark place is to have you here with me. Oh, Grace, just hold me in your arms and let this moment linger. They'll take me out at dawn and I will die. With all my love I'll place this wedding ring upon your finger. There won't be time to share our love, for we must say goodbye. Now I know it's hard for you, my love, to ever understand the love I bear for these brave men, my love of this dear land. But when Padraig called me to his side down in the GPO, I had to leave my own sick bed. To him I had to go. Oh, Grace, just hold me in your arms and let this moment linger. They'll take me out at dawn and I will die. With all my love I'll place this wedding ring upon your finger. There won't be time to share our love, for we must say goodbye. Now as the dawn is breaking, my heart is breaking too. On this May morn as I walk out, my thoughts will be with you. And I'll write some words upon the wall so everyone will know I love so much that I could see his blood upon the rose. Oh, Grace, just hold me in your arms and let this moment linger. They'll take me out at dawn and I will die. With all my love I'll place this wedding ring upon your finger. There won't be time to share our love, for we must say goodbye. Oh, there won't be time to share our love,
for we must say goodbye. Slán Anish, Gurmila Magat.